Welcome to Everyday Martial Artist, a weekly podcast where you'll join me, Brian Doucette, as I interview a different martial artist each episode and hear their story. Some guests you may have heard of, and some you probably haven't. Be sure to subscribe where all your favorite podcasts are available. Also visit our website at everydaymartialartist.com. If you're listening for a specific interview, I sure hope you'll stay and check out the other episodes. A very special thank you to Topher Williams for our custom theme music. And now, the newest episode of Everyday Martial Artist. Everyday Martial Artist is brought to you by KOOnline.com for all your martial arts needs. Sparring and safety gear, rank belts, uniforms, weapons, patches, and more. Wholesale supplies made by martial artists for martial artists. Visit us today at ko-online.com. Hello and welcome to Everyday Martial Artist. I'm your host, Brian Doucette, and as we do every week, we're joined by a brand new guest talking about their life and their journey throughout the world of martial arts. My guest today was born in Washington, D.C. and moved to New Mexico when he was 3 years old. Comes from a family of wrestlers. His father, brother, and uncle were all champions in the sport. In 1992, after graduating from Rio Grande High School, he founded his own martial art. He's the co-owner of the Jackson Wink MMA Academy in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is widely considered one of the top MMA training camps in the world. Please welcome my guest today, Mr. Greg Jackson. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm well, boss. How are you? I'm
doing good. I appreciate your time. I'm glad we're able to do this.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Definitely. My pleasure. My pleasure for sure. So what we like to do with all my guests, I want to go back to the beginning. Obviously, as in the intro, I mentioned you have a family of wrestlers, so I'm guessing maybe that was it. But I'm just curious, where did that first spark, that first interest in some type of martial arts come from?
Actually, it wasn't wrestling.
Okay.
It was necessity based. So I was raised in the South Valley of Albuquerque, New Mexico, that has a very, at that time, had a very machismo culture, where the kids didn't really care if you could play soccer or if you were good in school, but the kids I was growing up with just really could care if you could fight or not. That was it. So I figured I'd learn how to do that so that I can have some self-respect. That's always nice. And to be able to go where I want to go and say the things I want to say, it was a bottom line there, right? Like you could be like, well, I'll call the police, and the kids would be like, good. Like I get more meals indoors than I do out here in the world. So
wow.
There was nothing you could take from them. So you had to learn how to fight. And so it wasn't like I watched a Bruce Lee movie or anything like that. I was like, no, I needed to figure out how to do all this stuff.
Okay.
So I did.
So where did that lead you then? Did you do some research on your own? Did you ask your parents? Like what age were you?
I did. Well, about 5 years old is when I started. I went to kindergarten and started being exposed to that world.
Okay.
And so shortly thereafter, I asked to go to martial arts, and my parents put me in Aikido, which was good. Yeah, it's not a great street martial art, though, at least early on. So I had problems with that. Bounced around to some other traditional martial arts, but basically just went back to wrestling stuff and kickboxing, a very primitive form of that. Did that for a lot of years, just trying to figure it out on my own. After I bounced around in a bunch of different arts trying to find, maybe this one. We were doing a very primitive form of MMA when UFC came out, but it was all necessity based. It wasn't, I didn't like, there was nobody to teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu here in the early 90s. There was nobody the kickboxing was good. We had some really good kickboxing, some good boxing stuff, but no ground. So, it was a journey.
Well, I know you mentioned Aikido, and the one thing, depending how long you did it, though, I know the one thing I learned when I did Aikido for less than a year, but the best thing I learned from that was how to fall properly, which is such a good and unique skill.
It is. They do that well, and there's some like multiple opponent stuff. I think they do well with their footwork. I wouldn't say the rest of it, but there's some footwork stuff that you do well. They've got some good stuff, and of course they borrowed some stuff from Gaidojutsu Jiu-Jitsu, which is another good art. So yeah, there's good stuff there. It's just you have to be able to data mine to find it that's applicable, and I was too young to data mine it.
Right. So then you said I know after high school you got a lot more involved. So during high school, were there a lot of options in your area for martial arts? I know you mentioned like kickboxing and some other stuff. Were there quite a few schools to choose from?
Yeah, but they were all kind of the same deal, right? Like it was taekwondo or karate or kickboxing. So it was all kind of, and the Gracie Revolution hadn't happened yet.
Right.
So it was very, very primitive. But I figured out that most fights you're wrestling around with, and because I came from a family of wrestlers, I had involved in that a little bit, and then I was just trying to figure out what style of kickboxing would best augment that. And even I saw Sankaku and the triangle choke in a judo book one time. You know what I mean? Like just piecing stuff together.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the mid 90s, the UFC came out and all these grappling tournaments started. So at that time, we did basically kind of half our time in the UFC style. I shouldn't say it was the Wild West. Like you never knew what the rules were when you went to MMA primitive days. And then the same thing with the grappling tournaments were all a little bit different back then too. So we kind of did both of those.
Nice. And so you did some wrestling then while you were in school?
No, I was too busy. A dumb kid just getting in trouble and doing things. I was the only one in my family not to wrestle.
Wow.
And I'm the only one that still wrestles now. So there you go. But yeah, my brother was a state champion here in New Mexico. My dad took state in Illinois in the 60s. My uncle took D2 nationals in the 60s as well.
Wow. Okay. Ever get any of them involved in MMA and stuff, or?
Yeah, they just helped me, train or
okay.
tips and all that kind of stuff. And then I always blamed one of my dear friends, Brad Valdez, I met him in kindergarten. We're still friends. I had lunch or dinner with him last week. I'm sorry. But he came from a family of wrestlers as well. And they were all boxers. And so, and very good street fighters. So they kind of took me under their wing when I was very young. And I grew up kind of in their house along with my own house.
Okay. So now all those different styles you kind of tried and sampled the schools and stuff, any of those instructors stand out that's kind of made an impact on you?
I think they were all really good in their own way.
Okay.
One of the judo instructors just passed, Jesse Ballou, who'd been doing judo for, I want to say 60 or 70 years. He was 80, so it had to be, and he was a legend. He just passed last month before. So yeah, there was a lot of really great instructors, I felt. And it wasn't that they were bad people. They just didn't have the right information for me, for my needs. So I had to kind of do what we all did in mixed martial arts, which is, piece of Jeet Kune Do style, right? Take what you want from the menu.
Yeah. So then what led you to found your own style, and where did the name, the Gaidojutsu, come from?
Me as a 14-year-old kid going, Gaido means street and Jitsu means way of.
Is that how old you were when you came up with that?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So it always makes me laugh when people are, when they say it, because we use it anymore. But if you know it, like about my history and stuff. I just I had just a chance meeting with one of the best rappers ever. I'm a huge fan of his, Denzel Curry, and he knew what Gaidojutsu was. I was like, holy cow, you're a real deal when you actually know what Gaidojutsu is from the mid 80s or whatever it was, late 80s. So yeah, that my founding of my own style came from a frustration of not finding what I needed in other styles. I mean, had there been MMA in those days, I probably would have just done that, and the silly term Gaidojutsu would have never existed, but that wasn't an option for me, so I had to do it myself.
So do you actually have any certificates with that name printed on there for
Oh yeah, I still
really?
There are students that insist that I promote them in that.
That's
they don't want
awesome.
to be an MMA or Jackson's black belt. They want to be Gaidojutsu black belt. I said, okay, that's what you want. Knock yourself out.
That's actually kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, I like it too. I mean, it's cool to have something that you came up with so young still mean something to people. That's really cool. And then I can help them out on their journeys was really, really cool. So yeah, it worked out.
Nice. And so is that basically then what became the Greg Jackson fighting system?
Basically we called it Jackson Mission Fighting for a while, then Jackson's Mixed Martial Arts. And then in 2007, Mr. Winkletron tried to retire. And I was like, no, sir. We're going full time. And so then we became Jackson Wink.
Nice. That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's just impressive. So then at what point, obviously you were initially doing it for yourself. At what point did you decide you wanted to start teaching others, and what kind of led to that? Well,
when I was younger and kind of getting in scrapes a lot, my friends would see me and they'd be like, hey, how are you doing what you're doing? Well, let me back up a little bit. First of all, me and my friends would always train together, like me and Brad Valdez and Rio Gallegos. When we were young, like pre-middle school, maybe middle school-ish, we'd always train together. He had a little workout room in his house, so we'd lift weights and hit the bag, and we would just train together. And then we'd go, because defending yourself was pretty common at that point. We'd end up in scrapes and scraps. So that's kind of what we did. As I went to high school, then same friends but then I met new friends, which I'm still friends with today. And we would all train together. So eventually they asked, well, how was I doing what I was doing? And so I started teaching them even during high school. And then I was like, oh, it's fun to teach people. And, they do pretty well in their fights. So, oh, that's pretty cool. And then at 17, I just continued doing that and opened up my own school. But I kind of always knew I wanted to do that. Okay. I didn't think I would ever make money at fighting, but I'd make a living at teaching. And I really enjoyed teaching. I didn't love fighting. I didn't hate it, but it was just something I had to do. You know what I mean? Right. Like I'm not a violent person. It was just something that it was that in that time, in that place, it was something that I became obsessed with because I wanted to be good enough at it to be able to have my self-respect. And so I did that. And then teaching and helping other people. Let me back up again. So both of my parents are pacifist Quakers. I was raised a Quaker. Oh. So they really hammered, and I have tons of respect for my parents. I think they're the best people ever. And they really hammered into my head, happiness comes from helping people. They both were, products of the 60s in that they wanted to get involved in the Peace Corps, social organizations, make a difference. You know what I mean? Like that was their real deal. So I kind of came from that background. So me teaching and helping people felt more natural in my roots than chasing down competition stuff, which I never really enjoyed.
So think back then to when you first started teaching to now. What do you think's changed about your teaching style?
Oh man, I had no idea I still don't know what the heck I'm doing now, but I knew even less of what I was doing then. I think just a lot of lessons learned, a lot of failures, some successes. It is really just figuring out how people work, what they're, what motivates the fighter, that kind of stuff. I think I'm better at it now. I'm certainly more balanced. I started out and pretty intensely, and then for about 15 years there, it was 7 days a week where I was gone every weekend traveling for fights or whatnot. And now I'm kind of I still travel like I'm going here this next week coming up and the week after, but I don't travel like I used to do. So we have lots of other coaches that are great, so I can delegate out a little bit.
That's nice.
Yeah.
So what do you think makes your style different than others? I mean, obviously there's been a lot of fight camps that have come and gone, and yours is, there's only a handful that have lasted as long as yours. So what makes yours different, and what do you think makes yours stand out?
Well, I'd like to think it's stunning good looks, but probably not. Probably so I always had to figure out problems, right? Like that was because I think one of the biggest advantages I had was that there was nobody to teach me. So take jiu-jitsu for it. There's nobody to teach me jiu-jitsu, but we were doing all these jiu-jitsu competitions. So I had to figure out in pretty short order, it's physics, it's geometry, how to put these moves together, how to counter their moves that they were doing against us. And we did pretty well. We dominated for a lot of years there, but that was because I had to problem solve. And I think that's the only thing that keeps me relevant now is that I can still do that, right? I can look at a fighter and problem solve it. Not, I'm not always right, but I'm okay at it. I'm pretty good at it. So I think that the ability to do that has kept me around for this long, where I'm always coming up with new techniques, new ideas that don't all work. Like some of them are, you got to throw them out, but I'm still trying. I'm still being creative there. And so fighters will come for that success because I can problem solve pretty well. That's my theory. I have no idea what the real reason is.
Hey, we'll take it. Nice. So before UFC happened, now, did you guys do was there any kind of like bare knuckle, no hold bars type, underground competitions that you and your students competed in, or not really anything until?
It was all just fighting on the street before the UFC, and then after the UFC, and they started popping up everywhere. They were in those days, the internet was very primitive, if it was even around. I don't really remember it.
Yep.
It was 30 years ago, but so a lot of times you wouldn't know. Sometimes you could find out what the rules were, like they would fax them over to you or something. But nice. Most of the time you could go to these small, and that's where the origin of these rules meetings came from. Is that everywhere you went, the rules were different. So everybody had to make sure they were all fighting under the same rules, which is still like the referees in the UFC in today's day and age will still come and do a rules meeting before that. But then the reason they used to do that is because no one knew the heck to expect. So yeah, there was a lot of the Wild West, those bare knuckles fights, and sometimes it was bare knuckle to the face, sometimes it was open hand to the face, bare knuckle. It was always different. You just never knew. So it was very hard to train for that specific sport because the sports were very different.
So think back to November 1993. I mean, one thing I love about this interview is me and you were like the same age. We both graduated in 92, so we experienced a lot of this stuff, the same parts of our life. So think back to November 93, the first UFC. When you first saw it, when you first heard, what through your mind, and what do you remember about watching it, and kind of what changed then for you after that?
Well, instantly you see the mastery that Hoist had, and he's just such a great dude. I love talking to him, but you see the mastery that he had, and I could immediately tell these guys they're professors, and I'm in kindergarten. Like, it was just an awareness of the gulf of knowledge. That was one of the big things. Is like, wow, I don't know anything, which is a beautiful feeling. I think if you spent your whole life and you get to the end of it, and if you're lucky enough to get in your 90s and then you realize you don't know anything, that can be rough, I suppose. But not, when you're 17, whatever I was, 17, 18, not knowing anything was great. I was like, oh my God, I have to catch up. It gave me a purpose. So it was really positive. I'm forever thankful to the Gracie family. They've been nothing but great to me. And just coming out and doing that, because Bruce Lee did it intellectually, right? Like, the whole thing with the Jeet Kune Do thing was very similar to what we do in mixed martial arts.
Yep.
So he did it, but he didn't go out there open challenge matches anyway, one right after the other, and then put everybody away the way. And his fans, that always drives me crazy about Bruce Lee fans. They always talk about his fighting ability. I'm like, he's whatever he was, 135 pounds or whatever. Like, his value is not in his fighting ability. His value is in his brilliant ideas. He doesn't have to be the greatest fighter that ever lived. He doesn't. But he brilliant ideas. Anyway, so the Gracies went out and showed here's how we've been doing this for years. Here's how effective it is. And it was a mind-blowing situation to realize how little I knew. And it was beautiful and wonderful. And I wish I could relive it sometimes.
And I think that happened to, the smart ones, at least, that happened to most traditional martial artists. I think after that happened, there was always the ones who, even after watching, 1, 2, 3, 4, like, oh yeah, I could do that. It's not going to happen to me. It's like, right. Okay. Yeah.
My other favorite one was, we already do all that. I'm like, really? Because I've never seen karate guys do that in my life. I'm not saying that you don't, but I have never seen it.
Yep. Yeah. The one I remember was, I think it was UFC 4. The gentleman, he's actually from the town I live in. I believe it was Ryan Parker, who was out there bragging how he had these like magic breathing exercises that would prevent him from tapping out. And I think Remco Pardo tapped him out in like 40 seconds.
That's great. I love it.
Yeah.
But, that was the tyranny. You remember the martial arts in the 80s, and it was tyranny. Like, there were people these fat guys with their big black belts that they would talk about, blowing you through the wall with ki power. I mean, it was just like this LARPing fantasy world of fighting that just was bizarre. Yeah. I'm glad it worked out the way it did.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I still remember I watched that first one, and we were freaking out. All of us martial artists together watching this thing and jumping up and down and high five and thinking it's the coolest thing ever. So it was definitely something to live through.
It's beautiful to be young sometimes.
Definitely. So what led you and what made you decide to? It looks like you've written 2 books now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kind of what led
So those
to
are just technique books. I want to do a strategy book. Probably I don't think I'm good enough yet to do that, but maybe another 10 years or so. If I survive, I will try to do a strategy book, but that's just technique books. In those days, there wasn't a lot of access to now you've got like the BJJ Fanatics, you got all these great, and you had some like old school VHS tapes, but It was nice just to categorize a lot of the stuff that we were doing at the time.
Oh yeah, I know. And that's, God, I think when I first got into it, for any kind of instruction, we looked for any type of instructional thing for MMA, and I think I still have the VHS copy of Marco Huas's tapes.
That's great. I didn't even know he had tapes.
The
awesome.
King of the Streets. Yeah, I still have a couple of those.
I love it, man. That guy could fight. That was great.
He was fun to watch, man. Was that him and Paul Varlin's the leg kicks?
Yeah, where you could really see the efficacy of those leg kicks bombing on that. It was great.
So fun to watch. So fun.
Yeah.
So what's the plan? How long do you think before you'll probably write another book? I mean, do you have a goal, or just when you think you're ready?
Yeah, I'm trying to find these ubiquitous underlying principles of strategy that kind of the same way that laws of physics run the material world, if you will.
Right.
Just these laws of strategy that are ubiquitous, right? That work in tennis or chess or football or martial arts or whatever competitive friction, evolution, whatever competitive friction situation. If you follow these ideas, it's going to be a little more beneficial to your survival than not following those ideas. So I'm just trying to uncover those, and I have been for like the UFC. All that stuff is just a laboratory, right, for techniques and ideas and all that fun stuff. So I would say hopefully in 10 years I'll have at least the first like version of the book. Okay. The problem is, and I read directors that say this all the time, you never want to let it go, because then you figure out something else and you're like, oh, thank God I didn't do the book yet, because this wouldn't have been in there.
Yep.
Like an idiot, I'm gonna keep figuring stuff. Just slow. Like
that's when you do version 2.4, version 2.7.
Right, yeah, right, exactly.
And people keep buying
another revised edition. Good Lord, how many revised editions is this guy gonna do? So yeah, I'm trying to avoid that. We'll see. We'll see.
Nice. And then are you having fun with like the YouTube channel and putting content on there? I know there's quite a bit on there. Me and Michael talked about it a bit. It seems to be popular.
It's good. It's fun. All that stuff's fun. It's just fun to teach. It's fun to talk about martial arts. Like, it's just, especially with somebody like you that's been there and done that. And it's the whole thing is just a great time. Like I'm trying to think of another job where it would be this fun, and I just can't think of, like, I don't have to go and sit in front of a computer very often. It's a great time.
And I know Michael talked a little bit about, when I had him on, just kind of like the school and how much you've added on and revamped it, like with dorms and stuff. Just talk a little bit about that experience, and what if someone decided to maybe come train with you, what can they expect? What do they see there?
Well, it's one-stop shopping. So most schools you have to go like 4 or 5 different locations in most places if you really want to. In California and Colorado, there's a lot of that stuff. So it's all under one roof, which is nice. Mm-hmm. A massive complex, lots of dorms. It's a massive complex. There's so many classes every day. Like basically it's the reason that people stay there is just there's so much information all the time from so many different coaches flowing. And it was really cool to take that next step. We were pretty big and well known. And then moving into that building really I took it the next step as far as volume of people. It's crazy now. We have I want to say 100 pros living there. I don't know if that's exactly. No, it couldn't be 100. It's got to be 50 living there and 100 trained. Anyway, It's a lot. Okay. And it's cool. I go down and teach every day, and I just have a great time doing it. Yeah, I'm
just looking at the website. You have dorms, you have efficiency studio apartments, and you have 1-bedroom apartments. Kind of all price ranges and kind of something for everybody, which just looks.
Absolutely.
How cool.
Well, and that's what my big bro did. That's what Wink was, the real estate guy, right? So he knew how to develop the building and put all the stuff in there. I wish I was that smart. I'm strictly a martial arts guy. So, I'm a strategy guy too, but it wasn't, real estate has never really been my thing, other than I own some property, but outside of that.
Okay. And then kind of turning corners a little bit, what type of involvement did you have with the show Kingdom? As me and Michael talked a little bit about that, and absolutely love that show. I had never heard of it, and I found someone recommended it, and I binged the whole thing in like a week. So,
well, that was such a really positive experience. So Frank Grillo, the actor who I had met on Warrior, the movie Warrior that I helped out with, he brought me in to meet a guy named Brian Belasco, who was the writer, and that dude's a genius. Like Byron, is just an amazing writer, and so he would basically pump me for ideas for the script, write scripts, show it to me for editing, or what I needed to take out or add in, or that's way too unrealistic. I mean, it's all Hollywood, right? It's a little over the top, but so I was basically a consultant, and I set up the gym, the sets and stuff, helped out with that. They wanted more of a time commitment that I could do for the training the actors and the fight scene, so I got Joe Daddy Stevenson, one of my best students, to run all of that stuff, and he just did an amazing job. He's so smart. So it really was a labor of love. I love that. The whole thing, all the actors were great, super. And none of them were like, you think a guy like Nick Jonas would be, with all that success, he'd be a little prima donna-ish, but just the opposite, man. That guy worked hard, ground, sweet, kind. When he did his concert, he took my daughter and her best friend backstage to meet. He's just a great dude. So it was such a great experience. Again, some things I wish I could do again, and that's one of them.
See, when my friend told me about it, I'm like, Nick Jonas? I don't think I want to watch this. He's like, no, just watch one episode. Then he called me the next day. I'm like, dude, I'm on season 2 already. just going through it. It was so good. He's like, I told you. And I didn't realize you worked on Warrior. That's awesome. I mean, just wow. Anything else within Hollywood you've been doing, or?
Oh yeah, here and there. I mean, I'm not like Keith Jardine or any of these guys that are like that's their profession, but I jump in if they ask me to help out. I guess the three that I'm the most proud of would be the Warrior. Basically, that whole third act, I had a huge hand in making. Like Beethoven's Ninth that's all me. All that. Nice. There's a lot of stuff in there that's very me. And Frank like followed me around. He went full method actor and like followed me around. He walked like I did. For that movie, that's where I met him. And Joel Edgerton too, Tom Hardy, they're all just amazing guys, sweethearts, hardworking actors. It's always amazing to watch really high-level talented actors do their art. Like I get that they're pretending to be things they're not. That's cool, but like when they're really good at it, it's impressive. They were all very impressive. So that I had to do. They called me in. Tim Kennedy and Nick from Ranger Up called me in to do the fight scenes for a movie called Range 15, which had a bunch of military vets in it. So in 3 days, I came up with every fight scene basically in the movie, wrote them out. I got to do a fight scene for Danny Trejo, which was a lot of fun. Like, who gets to do that? That was sweet.
That's cool.
And then we had a fight between zombie Randy Couture and Tim Kennedy, where Tim Kennedy's naked and he rips off Randy. It was just a great time. It was so silly and ridiculous and funny. And they had a great scene with Clint and Leroy, the two Medal of Honor winners, fighting over who's going to jump on a grenade. You know what I mean? Because they both won the Medal of Honor. Anyway, it was just hilarious. It was well done, well thought out, and another great fun time. And then the Kingdom would be the third one that I guess I'm the most proud of.
Okay, nice. So then, as someone who's worked a little bit in the industry, but also a true martial artist, curious, did you enjoy Here Comes the Boom?
I did. I thought it was hilarious. Boss is a dear friend of mine, and he's always funny. Guy cracks me up constantly.
Oh, he was
it's
hilarious.
So funny that a guy that's so hilarious could also like just so powerful beat you up. Like he's just, he wouldn't beat anybody up nowadays. Right. He's sweet. You know what I mean? Like he can fight, but he's so funny. Anyway, really like Boss a lot. Brilliant guy. And yeah, I thought it was a funny movie. It was obviously more of a comedy deal.
Right.
But yeah, Kevin did a great job, and man, I got old school. Mark Delagrati was on there. I loved it.
Well, first time I watched that in the movie theater, and it was like that one of those main fights with Christoph Shosinski.
Oh yeah.
I judged like two of his early fights when he fought in Fargo in the early 2000s.
Ooh, man, there you go.
And I didn't realize he was in it. I'm like, oh my god, that guy looks familiar. I had to look it up.
Yeah. That's funny. That's funny. Yeah, it was a great movie.
And honestly, man, Frank Grillo, he's one of my dream guests. I've put a few requests out, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed I can get him on the show, because he'd be.
Oh, he's the man.
Yeah, and Boss, I have also have a request in, so we're hoping.
Well, both of them are amazing people. They're just, I can't say enough good things about them.
That's good. So let's say someone approached you that didn't live in Albuquerque. They're in a different part of the country. They're thinking of getting involved in MMA for the first time, and they want to know, what should they look for in an MMA school? What are some things they should look for? What are some things they should avoid if they want to find a good school to train at?
That's it. I think that's a very good question. I think that it used to be a lot worse than it is now. I think that you want to look at the culture is the number one thing, because everybody's a little bit different. There's not one school that fits everybody.
Right.
So you want to make sure that the culture of the school that you're going to is reflective of what you like to be around. If you like to be around a bunch of bros, and then find a bro school. If you like to be around a bunch of people that are laughing and having fun but train hard, then it's just about the vibe that you'd like there. And that you get out by trying it out, seeing if you like it, that kind of stuff. My advice for them would not actually be that. It would, because you'll figure out the schools as you go through your journey. What I always tell fighters is just get used to disappointment. Like everything about MMA is going to be disappointing. Mm-hmm. You're going to have disappointing days training. You're going to have your opponents are going to constantly pull out. You're not going to fight for a year and a half because you can't find a fight. Like it's just constant stream of disappointment. So if you're all right with that, then fighting is for you. And if you're not all right with that, find another job, because that's what really it's about. It's about it just agonizing disappointment. Training up to just doing so well, then getting some huge injury and not being able to train for 3 months. It's just, one thing after the other. So that would be my caveat. The school you'll find, I mean, even if you won't like it, then you'll figure that out in 6 months and go somewhere else. But it's really, do you even want to start it? That's the question. Like, can you deal with that level of high level disappointment of feeling like crap constantly?
Nice. That's great advice. I like that a lot. I'm assuming then, as long as you've been doing this, you probably know a lot of the schools throughout the country. So, I mean, if someone called you, you'd probably have maybe some personal recommendations also. Like, hey, I know this guy, go check him out. Cool.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just lucky enough to work with a lot of coaches, to be friends with a lot of coaches. So, I've been very privileged. The early days of MMA, there was just so few of us that we really bonded. I mean, it was great.
Yeah, I know. I remember because I started judging fights in 2002 or 2003. I judged for over a decade, and I remember they'd announce these fighters, and they'd name the school, and I'd go talking. Oh, where's the school? Oh no, it's just like 3 guys we meet at the wrestling room at the local high school. Okay, they all came up with gym names just to sound legitimate and sound scary and stuff, and it's like,
yep, that was it back in the day.
Who knows? Maybe some of them are still going. Maybe they built something with it. You never know. But
I hope all the success in the world to those guys, because that's grinding. You know what I mean? Like, nobody cares. Those are the guys you cheer for. Like, when you're just doing it, nobody cares. There's no money in it, and you just love it.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to remember the first live MMA event I saw. They brought one into a local casino. And the only fighter I remember that was there was Dan Severn. I don't remember anyone else that was on the card. This would have been like 97 or 98. It was after I moved back from California. And I wish I could probably go back and look at his Sherdog and probably figure out where he fought and who else was on that card. But I just remember we went because Dan Severn was there.
There you go. That's hilarious and awesome. That's great.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I was lucky enough to actually get to see him fight in person, I think 3 times, and I judged at least 2 of those fights. So.
Oh, great. That's so cool. Yeah. He's a man. He's one of the OGs.
Oh, yeah. So thinking back then to the old school UFC to today, are you one, just as a fan, do you prefer the old school, less rules, no weight classes, kind of no holds barred, or do you prefer the new stuff?
I don't really have a preference one way or the other. It's just whatever parameters we're working in. That's the deal. So if those days, that's what we worked with, and that's what I'd work with. If there it is now, then it is what it is now. I will tell you that it's much easier to make a living now as a mixed martial arts instructor than it was then. So I'm very grateful to the marketing machines that have pushed UFC and Bellator and all the rest of them for all the years out, King of the Cage, even the smaller ones like that. So I'm very grateful for all of those people, because it kind of a combined effort. We figured it out, and now you can actually make a living at this crazy sport.
So do you wish some of those smaller ones would have, maybe not been engulfed by the UFC and kind of stayed on their own, like Pride and like WEC? Do you kind of wish they were still doing their own thing, or are you glad UFC got as big as it did?
I think competition is good. But I mean, you can't take anything away from Dana.
No.
We always know that he and I will disagree on fighter pay till we're both dead probably, but can't take away the when he did the real game changer, it was in 2004 or 5, whatever year it was, and the Ultimate Fighter. That's when I really noticed everything changing in the MMA world. Suddenly you could make money. Suddenly my gym had more people. Diego won the first season, so we had more people than I could count. All of a sudden, that was a big deal.
That's cool. Nice. So who are some people, and these can be people people you've met, or just like legendary people like a Helio Gracie, whatever, but who are some people that you would put on your personal Mount Rushmore of martial arts?
Oh, sweet Lord. It would be a giant. I mean, in the modern era, are you talking like Kano for judo? Or
completely up to you. It's your personal Mount, and it doesn't have to just be 4. It can be 2. It can be 4. If you want to name 6, go ahead.
Good Lord. I couldn't. Yeah. I think I don't think I could name them. There's just so many people that have done so many. Think about how many people in the Gracie family alone, without any of the jiu-jitsu people that come from hundreds of years before them, even now, there's so many. And that's what's, I think, really cool about the modern era is the internet. like suddenly the world is shrunk down so small. I can see, or I can, because of airplanes, I can go train with anybody in any part of the world at any time. You really get a sense that there's not one guy. There's revolutions, like huge ones. Again, like the Gracies, that I call it a Gracie revolution. And then there's a bunch of people that do, kind of micro revolutions after that. Somebody comes up with a new idea within those parameters. And so it's really in the aggregate. Like I think today there's not one guy that like thinks of everything, because there's so many smart people doing it and they have access to that information. I think it would be really hard to name. I mean, obviously the entire, you should just have one G up there for the entire Gracie family. But you should also have, I mean, they got their stuff from somewhere, right? So like, I mean, they innovated a bunch of stuff, but all the jujitsu people, I mean, good Lord, how many people, Bruce Lee, so many of them. I would have to think for days about that.
Okay. That's okay. No worries. So in all your years of martial arts, combat sports, everything you've been doing, is there a philosophy you've learned or a specific teaching you've learned that is just super important to you? It rises to the top. You try to come back to it whenever you can. You teach it to your own students.
Yeah, and I really think it's about it. And I didn't come up with it. It's hundreds of thousands of years before me. I don't know, hundreds of thousands, but a lot. And that's just the process, just staying in the process, making the process the important thing. I really, if you stray from that, you degrade. And if you stay on it, you stay fresh. So I really feel that like life is really about that process and about staying in. It's about battles and staying in that process and not letting things pull you out. And so I would say that's the most important lesson that I've learned. And there's, 10,000 more, because I'm an idiot and I have to do everything the hard way. So the nice thing about that is after you put your hand on the stove and it's deformed from being burned so many times, you do get some wisdom eventually. And I would say that's where I'm at.
Nice. So thinking the next 10 years, what would you hope to see from MMA and like the UFC over the next 10 years? What would you like to maybe see change? What would you like to see improve other than fighter pay?
Well, obviously,
number one.
The athletes making more money would be nice. But really, I just think continuing to do what we're doing. It's so fun right now to still come up with techniques, to do all of these things, to innovate, to watch people take their journeys. I would say keep doing what we're doing. Hopefully the athletes will make a little more money eventually, and it'll be even more viable than it is now. But just keep on trucking, really. That's I don't want to see anything, in 10 years, I'd like to see everybody do, I don't know, mixed martial arts in space with zero gravity. And there's nothing like that I would concern myself with. I think just keep doing that process that people like you and I have been lucky enough to be a part of in our time, in our place. And maybe in 300 or 400 years, somebody will listen to our podcast, your podcast.
There we go.
Now there's zero gravity MMA. So.
Be interesting. So do you think in our lifetime, since we're the same age, do you think in our lifetime we'll see MMA in the Olympics?
No, I don't think so. I think there's so much. Well, I shouldn't say that. So here's the thing about me you'll figure out real quick is I'm terrible at predicting trends. I can predict fighters and people to a lesser extent, but like I thought the Ultimate Fighting, the TV show that changed everything, I thought that was just going to be a colossal waste of time. I tried to talk Diego out of it. So I don't know. I don't think so, just because my mind is there's so many politics. It's so hard to get any combat sports in there. Mm-hmm. I mean, if they've got why they wouldn't have pancrase, which is basically what we do in the Olympics when you've got all the rest of them, I'm not really sure. You've got boxing in there. So I don't know, but it seems like very hard to get anything in the Olympics these days. I know there's Kung Fu guys that have been trying to get like that in there and for years and years. So I think there's just too many roadblocks unless some amazing individual, figures out how to do it, or somebody on the committee just loves it and pushes it. Outside of that, I don't see it.
So if you got the phone call and they said, we're adding it in the next Olympics, we want you to coach the U.S. team, would you do it?
Oh, of course. Sure.
Nice.
That'd be fun. Yeah, it'd be something to do.
Cool. Something to do. There we go. Nice.
I love things that I haven't done before, right? I learn new stuff and try to figure out new ways to solve problems. And yeah, that'd be fun.
Okay, cool. Well, now I'm keeping my fingers crossed, so we'll see.
Yeah.
All right. These last few questions are kind of some fun ones to wrap it up. And you can't pick something that you yourself have been involved in or worked on. So first one, favorite martial arts book?
Oh, Book of Five Rings, easy.
Oh, nice. Good answer. God, no one said that one in a while. I know early on in my show, I think 3 or 4 people said that, and that hasn't been an answer in a while, so I like that.
The problem with that is that the translations are so bad, most of them. They're so, you get a lot of these, what I call karate filters, these guys that have been like 2 or 3 fights in their life, and they try to discern this brilliant strategic guy that's been in God knows how many. Yeah. So you get a little bit of, it won't make sense to you if you're reading the wrong translation, in my opinion. Okay. At least it didn't to me.
Good. All right. And as someone who grew up in the 80s and 90s like me, do you have a favorite martial arts video game?
Oh, that's a great one. Man, it's not a great game, but I loved Karate Champ, the arcade one.
That's so awesome.
Love that thing. It was great. I used to save, like, I'd get a quarter and I would save it and hold on to it. And there's this little local chain called Allsops that had like gas station burrito stuff, and they had the Karate Champ, and I would walk it'd be about a mile to the Allsops that had the karate. And I would like put 1 quarter in and play 1 game and then walk all the way home. It was great.
You're my second or third guest that has actually said Karate Champ, so I love that so much.
It's great.
If I ever found like a stand-up one cheap somewhere, like in an auction, I would probably buy it, and my wife would kill me.
I would come to your house and play it. That'd be an awesome day.
If I get one, I will invite you. It'll be fun.
Sold.
Nice. All right, now how about a favorite martial arts TV show? Can't pick Kingdom, obviously.
Oh, TV show. Let's see. I'm trying to remember martial art TV shows. The problem is I don't watch TV, not because I'm like some intellectual giant, but I just get ADD now and bounce around. I can watch movies, but not TV. So I'm trying to think favorite TV show that's not Kingdom.
Cobra Kai or maybe Kung Fu back in the day.
Kung Fu. That's it. Okay. That's the one. Kung Fu. I was a kid for sure. Right. Love that.
There we go.
You watch the fight scenes now and you're like, oh my God, that's really, even for fight scenes, because I love fight scenes. Everybody's like, oh, can you do all this training. Can you watch it? I'm like, yeah, I love like dance fighting. I think it's so fun. The music's going, like, it's not real fighting. You're in the movies.
Yeah.
So anyway, you watch some of those old ones, you're like, oh, that's not good. That's bad.
when you take someone that had zero martial arts training, and nowadays you can take someone with zero martial arts training and they can actually make it look decent, but back then not so much.
Yeah. But I loved it when I was a kid. Loved it. Kung Fu. That was it.
Nice. All right. How about favorite martial arts movie?
That's a hard one. I really love the lessons of the first Karate Kid movie. And I saw the funniest. They had something on YouTube where they showed where like Daniel LaRusso was the actual bully, and the rest of the guys were. That was hilarious. But I really enjoyed that movie because of I identified with the lessons of that. Like, oh, you get a martial arts and you can fight for your self-respect. Like, I was like, oh, there you go. That was very familiar to me. So I really enjoyed that one.
Nice. See, and that's my go-to answer because that's the reason I got involved in martial arts. Literally went to that movie opening night, and there was a local Tung Sudo school handing out free passes outside of the building when we walked out of the movie. So,
wow.
Great marketing.
Really good marketing.
Yep.
Brilliant.
Yep. So then, have you watched Cobra Kai at all? Have you checked it out?
I have not. I don't really watch TV much, but everybody says it's really good, and I'm just glad to see the actors still doing work. And so many people love their beloved roles. You know what I mean? So it's nice that they're giving the people what they want.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you like the first one, the movie, you'd probably love the show, and you'd probably get sucked in and watch the whole thing. So
yeah, I better not do it then. Too many people.
There you go. All right. Final question. This one doesn't have to be a martial arts movie. It can be. It doesn't have to be. Just a favorite movie fight scene.
Oh, that's a good question too. A favorite movie fight scene. There was when I was young. Oh my God! It had Yul Brynner in it. What was it called? It might have been The Ultimate Warrior, The Warrior or The Ultimate Warrior. Anyway, it's a post-apocalyptic deal. And there was a fight scene at the end where the guy, I don't know why I loved it so much, but it was just an intense fight scene, probably because Yul Brynner's such a great actor. Anyway, he gets this like thing wrapped around his hand and he has to cut off his head. The guy's like, it's the old thing where the guy's like hanging off of him. And he can't die because he's hanging off the side of the cliff or whatever. I think he was in a pit or something, and he's tied to him. And he has to cut his own hand off to win the fight. And I don't know why I really like that fight scene. It wasn't like it was innovative. I mean, you watch. There's just a different thing, and fight scenes are so cool. Just the difference between the first Star Wars, right, where Obi-Wan and Darth Vader are basically doing kind of an old school sword fight, like, and then the difference between in the new movies, they're like acrobat flipping all over with 6 lightsabers at the same time, and they just really have evolved. But there's something raw about that old fight scene. I think that's what it was. It just felt raw to me. The having to win by losing an appendage, I always found was a fascinating idea. So yeah, I think it's called The Ultimate Warrior.
Okay, I need to look that one up because that one doesn't sound familiar.
Yeah, it has Yul Brynner in it, and I don't know. I actually haven't seen it in God knows how long, but so I don't know if it holds up. But I loved that movie when I was a kid.
Nice. Well, now I got something to check out. So cool. Well, before I let you go, anything else you want to mention and get out there and promote, or last words or whatever?
Nope. If you're listening, come train with me in Albuquerque.
Nice. I'm hoping. I've never been to Albuquerque. I've been to, but I want to get down there.
Come on down. We'll take care of you, boss.
That'd be cool. And next road trip or something, I'll take the southern route and head down there and stop in. But it'd be fun. But I will put links for everything else, for the school, for everything else on the show notes and promote it. And like I said, it'll be September. What did I say now? September 15th, I believe, is when this episode should be coming out. But I will get a hold of you before it comes out, and we'll promote the heck out of it. But I truly appreciate your time. It's been a blast chatting with you.
Oh, thanks, Brian. Yeah, anytime you want me on, I'm here.
Thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist. We hope you will join us every week for a brand new episode with a different martial artist telling their story. If you enjoy the show, be sure to leave us a review. Also, be sure to check out our website at everydaymartialartist.com. There you can find all of our episodes and contact us to suggest guests and ask questions. Again, thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist, and we'll see you next week.